In the very earliest days of Oasis, Noel Gallagher wasn't the main songwriter. It was actually Liam Gallagher and Bonehead. The two of them wrote a handful of songs that made it onto some of the earliest Oasis demos, and of all those songs, the most popular one was a tune called Take Me. Recently, Bonehead had a cancer scare, which led to him having to pull out of Nebworth, but he has recently been given the all clear, so I'd like to dedicate this video to him. A while back, I had a crack at rebuilding one of those really early Oasis demos written by Liam and Bonehead, a song called Reminisce. But when I did that song, I kind of rebuilt all the tracks myself, I sang it, I just kind of rebuilt the song from the ground up. Today, I'm going to do something similar with Take Me, but I'm going to use some of the original Oasis stems, and I'm going to use Liam Gallagher's vocals. And hopefully this will mean that you guys can hear for the first time a studio quality version of Oasis's most popular song from their earliest days. There are 3 different versions out there of Take Me. The first is very low quality and has different lyrics. The second is much better quality and includes Noel's guitar solos.
Take me when I'm not so strong. Why has it taken you so long?
And there is also a live version recorded at the Boardwalk in Manchester. Version 2 and the live version have the best quality vocals and they're both singing the same lyrics. So I've used a stem splitter to take both of those vocal tracks out of those cassette demos and I've kind of blended them together. And when you put them together, they sound pretty close to the finished article. However, as is always the case with a stem splitter, there's a little bit of warping noise, a very slight underwater sound to the vocals when you listen to them in isolation. But once they're mixed in with the song, the vocal tracks sit pretty comfortably.
Take me when I'm young and true. Was it me or was it you? Take me when I'm not so strong. Why has it taken you so long?
The definitive version of Take Me is probably version 2, which runs at approximately 130 BPM, so that's the speed at which we're going to do this rebuild. Tony McCarroll does kind of change speed a bit throughout the original demo, but his drum groove, as usual, is absolutely ace, so I've decided to keep the time consistent and rebuild his part using loops built from proper recordings of Tony McCarroll's drumming on a different song, some might say. The beats are very similar on these two songs, so it should be fairly straightforward. Some might say is 110 BPM, and so all we need to do is speed this up by 20 BPM to 130 and we should be somewhere close for the first beat. In Take Me, Tony only plays the ride on the intro, and then for the rest of the song he locks into the same groove, and that's on the hi-hats. So here is the hi-hat beat from Some Might Say at 110 BPM. And now let's speed that up to 130. But that's not quite the same beat that Tony played on Take Me. There should be a few more snare hits, so I'm going to take a sample of his snare from Some Might Say and insert them into the right places to recreate his beat. Have a listen. And so, there we have it. We have Tony McCarroll's drum loop for Take Me. But, of course, Tony doesn't just play a loop from start to finish. He plays little drum rolls in between different sections. However, there was no way for me to convincingly recreate this. So this is what I've done. I've isolated the drum rolls from the original track and I've just slotted them into the right places alongside the new loops we've created. And I've EQ'd them so they sound a little bit like programmed drum fills. If you remember, on the white label version of Columbia, there was, at the end of the song, a programmed drum beat running alongside Tony's actual drums, and that's the sound I've tried to kind of recreate a little bit here. The guitar tracks, however, are unfortunately a bit inaccessible. I could have spent hours and hours trying to extract the original guitar stems from the cassette tape recordings, but they never would have been properly studio quality. So, being a session musician myself, I decided to just rebuild them exactly as the band originally played them. And when we listen to the song in a minute, I'll put all the bass and guitar tab on the screen for anyone who wants to learn those parts. The lead guitar parts are Noel, who is a fairly simple lead guitarist in his very earliest days, so if you're an aspiring lead guitarist and you're just starting out, this song is a great place to begin. And I have added one or two other subtle touches. The original demos were recorded before the band had access to a proper producer, so I've added in a few things just to make the mix sound a little bit more Definitely Maybe-ish. In many songs from the Tony McCarroll era, Tony would just play the same beat pretty much from start to finish, and so the way producer Owen Morris would introduce a little bit of variation and texture into a song was he would add in a tambourine. So, just to change up the rhythm section and add a little bit of flavour, I've done that here as well. I've added a buried ebow in places as well, and I've also incorporated a Morning Glory era technique, which is to have huge walls of distorted electric guitars and then buried underneath them a clean picking part, arpeggiating the chords and just fleshing out the sound. However, I didn't want to get too far away from that original Definitely Maybe wall of guitars punk sound. So I didn't add in any extra layers. I didn't do any backing vocals, I didn't add any keys or strings or anything like that. So that's it. Here we go. I hope you enjoy my rebuild of Take Me by Oasis with Liam on vocals and Tony on drums.
was it me?